Afternoon, everyone, and I want to welcome you to this TM conversation as we talk about regathering what we are learning. We have three guests that I'm really excited to hear from today. That would be Tate Crenshaw, Mitch Melzer, and Josh Husmann. But I have to be honest with you, right now we're waiting for Josh Husmann. He is somewhere back in Indianapolis, and we're hoping that he'll be coming on real soon. But thank you for being a part of this conversation. I know that our churches are in different stages of regathering, and there are a number of you who haven't started yet, but you're thinking very carefully about the process, and we thought it would be helpful to revisit this topic again and hear from some churches that may be a little farther down the road than you are. So my co-host today, and I'm really excited to have him as a part of this conversation, is my longtime friend, Matt Lewis, who is the executive pastor at Beach Point Church in Fountain Valley. Matt, great to have you a part of this call. Why don't you say hello to everyone and tell us where Beach Point is at in the whole regathering process.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug, for having me. It's good to be with everyone today. Wish we could be in person soon. So yeah, Beach Point, we're actually at the kind of the beginning stages of re-entry. So just last Sunday, we hosted what we called an in-person watch party, where we invited our key leadership, our life group leaders, our elder board, and we just said, hey, come on campus. We're going to run through our protocols in a very small physical gathering, and we're essentially going to watch the service on a large screen together before we actually go live with a live service and live stream. And so we literally took a first step this last weekend. So I'm really here to learn alongside everybody, and I'm happy to share what I know or what I don't know.
Okay, awesome. We're going to change things up a little bit because Josh hasn't been able to join us. He was going to be our first presenter, but let me take a moment to just present another longtime friend as our first presenter. That would be Tate Crenshaw. He's at Life Point Church in Banning, doing a wonderful job there. And we asked Tate to be a part of this because their church has been doing this for several weeks now. So they're in the process of learning what to expect, what not to expect, what you need to do in the whole process of regathering. Let me just say, if you've got some questions, please use the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. We want to hear from you. We'll try to ask the presenter the questions that you have. And then also, if you want to make a comment, a very kind comment, a very encouraging, upbuilding comment, that kind of comment, you can use the chat feature. But Tate, great to have you, and go ahead and share with us what you're learning.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Great to be with everybody today. We started our process of regathering back on the 24th. We called it a kind of a soft opening. We did a little bit what Mitch was saying. We invited, Matt, in terms of inviting our leadership to invitation only in terms of our service. And we walked through it with our leadership, what we were planning to do. Did some training so they were aware of what we were going to be doing on the following week when we invited everyone to come. And so that started on the 24th. So we've been at it for about 5 weeks. Our first day where we invited everybody was Sunday, the 31st of May. On that first Sunday, we had about 55% of our average attendance on that Sunday. We had what we did before we met is we did a virtual walkthrough with our people on an update online. And so everybody connected through our website or our app at LifePoint. We walked through what it would look like from the time they walked in the door to the time they sat down, what the service would look like, and then what it would look like as we left. And so we wanted to try to make it as simple and as clear as possible what we were going to be doing, so people that were making a decision as to whether they'd be coming or not knew exactly what we were going to be doing. So we did that virtual walkthrough. We have 2 services, one at 9, 10:45, and we told them the restrictions in that virtual walkthrough that we'd be doing. We told them we'd be having a 25% capacity in terms of what our facility would hold. We would do that at each of the 2 services. We let them know that there'd be a nursery for both services. And we also let them know that we would be doing having the kids come for one service only at 10:45. So we invited the kids. We figured if parents were going to come, they were going to need to bring their kids. And I know that there was a little bit of discussion about that and how that would work. And so we decided we were going to do that, but just one service only. Those that were maybe in that zone of underlying conditions would come to the first hour. And if they were a little nervous being around kids. And so we did that at the 10:45 hour with just the kids, just grade school. We didn't have college, high school, or junior high meeting on Sunday morning. We had them there at the service, but we didn't have their groups meeting on Sunday morning. And so through the walkthrough, we let them know that our doors would open 15 minutes ahead of time. They were locked. We didn't want people wandering around the facility beforehand because it had been sanitized and cleaned. And our goal was to have people just walk straight into the worship center without mingling and all of those things. So we let them know that the doors would open 15 minutes ahead of time. We didn't really want any handshaking or hugging or touching per se, we knew that was going to be difficult for our people that wanted to come, but we told them that. And so then we also closed down some hallways where people couldn't roam and where we wouldn't have to re-clean and things like that. So we made a kind of a straight shot to where we wanted people to go. And then in terms of our seating, we still have pews at our church. And so we marked off where we wanted people to sit. And it was pretty simple for us. When you went down an aisle, we marked off the aisles with just kind of blue tape on the pew that said, here's the end of the aisle. We wanted everybody sitting on the ends. And of course, they were staggered. And so if you went down a side aisle, you sat on that end. If you went down the middle aisle, you picked either side. And there was just some blue tape on the pew that said, here's where you're supposed to sit. We figured that if those, we didn't know if big families, individuals, so we had our ushers in our training session aware that if we needed to move people in the middle, distancing them, we could do that as well in terms of capacity. So our ushers were prepared on that. We told people that when they came in, we wanted them to wear masks as they were entering into the facility. In the second hour, they'd have a choice just to go right to the children's area from there, and we had people directing them for that as well. But as they got into their place of seating, it was their freedom to determine whether they were going to wear a mask or not wear a mask. And our admonition to them in our virtual walkthrough and in our kind of preparation was we wanted to have freedom with people to do what they were comfortable with and also respect those that might be a little fearful but wanted to be there. If you could ease them in terms of comfort level, do that. So we left personal responsibility, freedom. We didn't want to over block off things and make that the focus. We really wanted it to be a celebration of being together. And so we tried to minimize all those things that might remind us of what we were dealing with rather than worshiping together. So we really took notice of that. We removed any tables or places where people could set things when they came in. And again, that was more for cleaning and sanitizing. And so then as we met and we tried to keep our service because we're still doing online, obviously. And so we tried to keep that tight in terms of what we did in the service. And we let people know that after the service was over, that we would kind of exit like you would at a wedding. We'd let the people in the back rows go first and let them get out, and then the rows after would follow. And again, we had our ushers and greeters and people that were there to help remind them of that. We had our offering boxes in the back. And so we have a table in the back that's kind of spread out. So if there was information people had to pick up or leave their offering, of course, we encouraged them to continue to do that online, as some of them had started doing now. Either way, but then the hope was they would go straight out the way they came in. And then we let them know once you get out into the parking lot, you're free to kind of be personally responsible for how you want to greet and talk with others out there. But we wanted to make sure that we were following the protocol of what we let them know, so that those that were more concerned about coming would feel comfortable coming. So we really tried to stay to that. It was tough. A lot of people wanted to hug and shake hands and touch. And so we wanted to honor that. And it was tough to do that. But then we locked the doors after people were out. Our teams that were there to sanitize the whole facility and the kids area and the nursery and the worship center did all of that work while people waited outside. And then we opened up 15 minutes prior for the second service and followed that same process. Some of the things that we kind of learned or observances that we saw that I don't know if they were surprises, some of them might have been, but we, over the 4 weeks, we've had a pretty good attendance in terms of listening, kind of what the national average has been. We've kind of had about 55% attendance-wise, as I mentioned. That number has slowly, we had one Sunday of decrease, but then slowly increased, not a huge number, but maybe up to about 60% last week. And so we've seen a little bit of gain. And then just watching online, we've noticed the numbers have been still pretty good, about a third less online and less people watching it live, but still people watching it at their convenience at another time. So the numbers were still really good online with a little bit of a decrease, obviously, for those that were coming. We had new people that came that you want to be prepared for, and it's really challenging when you can't get up close with people and they're coming in at different times and your distance. So you might want to think about how you want to do that as they come in, because you really have a brief moment to make a connection with new people that might be coming. And then also, we found that people were genuinely excited to be there. The atmosphere was good. I know some people have questioned that, what it would be like, but there was real excitement. When we got together, people were excited to be there. And we really experienced that. And at the same time, there were some that really wanted to be there, but were really, really still fearful. And we had people that kept their mask on the whole time, some that wore gloves, some that were over cautious, you could tell, and were really concerned. So you just want to be mindful. You're going to have a whole wide range of where people are at. And then one thing that I guess we were wondering about and heard when Josh had spoke last time in the last webinar, he had shared a little bit of this, so we were kind of preparing for it, is we did find a little bit of complacency with people that would come and that were serving. So we're doing kids ministry. Of course, you have all your audio visual people there and your staffing that's doing certain parts, but your volunteers, we did have some that had kind of become complacent. They weren't really fearful of the virus, but after having some time off, felt like they liked the time off. And so there were some holes to fill, and we were kind of prepared for that a little bit from some of the things Josh had shared in his webinar. So you might be prepared for that in terms of, who's going to be there volunteer-wise to help you. And then we also kind of learned that having the online service, which we didn't have prior, we were moving toward that, but we didn't have it. That the convenience of meeting online, people really enjoy. So those that maybe would be coming might not be coming because they enjoy the convenience. And of course that hits into those that might be serving, would rather, stay home. And particularly, as has been mentioned, over 40 has been the number, maybe even 45 that are coming. The younger families, we've not seen them in big numbers. I know as we've talked to some of them, the convenience of having the kids at home and getting them ready and doing everything online is a little bit easier than getting them up for church on Sunday. So those natural challenges are there. And of course, over time, you kind of, get a new pattern. And so just be mindful that people have developed new patterns over the last 3 months. And so those are some of the challenges that you'll face that you want to think through in terms of reaching people. We are doing, because we've been at this a little longer probably, we have our college group, high school, junior high group meeting midweek, following restrictions and all those, but we are meeting. Our life groups are all started to kick back in, and our process on that has been, we just find a bigger room if we feel like we can't distance as well. So some of our life groups one of them that is really not a small life group, but was a bigger. So they meet in the worship center, and we set the microphone up and they spread out in there. So we're doing everything we can to get people back into connecting physically, face to face. And we found that's just been a tremendous help for people. They have really missed the gathering, and it's been really, really meaningful. So those are some of the things that we've seen, kind of learned from. And so maybe I'll just leave it there. And if you have questions, I can try to address those.
Go ahead, Matt. What questions do you have for Tate?
Yeah, I guess questions that I would ask from, because we're kind of a few weeks, I guess, behind you guys. One of the things that we're talking through is related to children's, really family ministry programming. Was there any hurdles that you had to kind of, whether they're psychological or, operational hurdles, did you have to jump over, through, around to relaunch those? Like, how did you communicate to the church? What was influencing that decision? Do you find parents to be worried or scared still?
Yeah.
How did you navigate that?
Yeah, those are great questions. Yeah, in terms of the emotional challenge of that, people are all across the spectrum on that. Ones that are ready to go, ready to bring their kids, not worried at all. And then we've had some that have told us, we think it's too soon, we're going to wait. And again, the way we've addressed that is just freedom for people at the level they're comfortable with. What we've tried to do is throughout the process, we've had we've done an update with our people twice a week, Monday and Thursday, letting them know the change of schedule, what we're doing. We've worked hard to try to really be simple and clear in terms of what we're doing, so people have all the information. And if we're not clear, they respond back to us, and then we can let them know, here's what we're doing, why we're doing it. And so when it came to the children's ministry, those concerns that people might have for social distancing, how, we're going to let them run and jump on each other, which is kind of what happens with the kids. We let them know what our plan was and how we're going to do that. We still continue to do that online, a little program for our kids online. So both of those are happening simultaneously. So if they choose not to come physically and meet, that they have that online with their kids. So we recognize that half of our people are coming and half of our people aren't. And then there's a whole new audience online that we didn't have. And so whatever we're doing physically together in the facility, we're trying to make sure that we're meeting that need online with those that aren't quite ready to come. But the key to your question, I think, is that we've just tried to be clear and let everybody know what we're doing. If they had concerns, we could respond back. And sometimes you get ones that you didn't think about. So your team can think through those again and go, okay, how do we want to deal with that and be prepared for it?
That's helpful.
Tate, one of the questions I had, you mentioned that people came in with masks on. Did some people leave the masks on the whole service? What happened during, or did most of them take it off? I'm just thinking of singing. We've had a lot of, what was that like?
Yeah, we let people know they had the choice, and most did take them off the first week. And of course, those that are coming are a little more comfortable coming. That's why they're there. And so they're more prone to want to hug or greet and that kind of thing. And so they took their mask off, but we did have some that wanted to be there, but were fearful, had gloves, kept their mask on. We made the choice on that level to say that, if you were going to come and sing, it would almost be a negative experience if you were going to try to sing with the mask on. And so we figured if we were going to do this, we needed to give people the freedom to do that if they were really, really fearful of that, even though we were distancing so that you weren't close to people in terms of projecting or singing. We just felt like if they were that scared, they were probably going to stay home anyways. And so we just tried to really push that freedom idea. And if you're more comfortable at home, and we encourage those that were in the underlying conditions to just stay home. You're the one that's really in danger. Doesn't seem to be that great of danger for the others as far as we evaluate, but if you were, just stay home and enjoy it from there. So we did singing, but I would mention, I guess I did mention this, as the weeks have gone by, the familiarity of that coming on, people want to start touching and hugging and, kind of those restrictions. And so we did on one Sunday, I think the week prior at the end of the service, we just reminded people that this isn't, you may not be afraid, and we understand that, but be mindful of others that might still be a little fearful, a little concerned. So let's try to all the restrictions inside the facility, so what we promise to people, they know that's what they're going to get. And when you go out inside of the parking lot, in terms of your own personal responsibility, if you're comfortable with another way, have at it there. But we want to honor what we told people we were going to do.
So on the property, follow our guidelines. If you want to step off the property, you can give someone a hug,
Yeah, right.
Sneaking off like a bunch of junior hires. Oh God. Oh, wow. Hey, we want to take a poll right now just to find out where those of you who are watching this conversation are at in terms of reentry. So I'm going to ask Elena, who is graciously serving as our administrator for this, to kind of put that poll up. And you'll see that we're just interested, where is your church currently at in the regathering process? So we're still currently doing everything online. That's an option. We are still doing all of our worship services online, but we're gathering for some events, so not worship. We have begun to regather outside, but not inside the building. I know that a bunch of our churches have had parking lot gatherings or different kinds of gatherings. We have begun the process of regathering for worship. We are fully regathered. So while you're in the process of doing that, I want to remind you that all of the previous conversations or these webinars can be found on our TM website. And if you go to the resource page under tmchurches.com, they're all there. And there are some ones that are just really helpful to revisit. Some of them may be a little dated because so much has changed and so fluid, but some of the conversations we had, like the one we had last week with with Terry Walling, is really timeless in terms of the things that he had to share. So I would encourage you to go back and check those out. And then I want to remind you that our chat team, the church health team, continues to serve our churches during this time. It's a great chance to do some strategic thinking about the future. They're able to do a whole strategic plan online. They have the capability to do that. Maybe you want to begin the process of talking about bylaws or a discipleship pathway or something like that. So I would encourage you to get in touch with our office, with Mark Barguer, who leads the church health team, and let us come alongside you and serve you so that you can be more effective for the kingdom. But we should see where our poll's at this point. So let's just kind of put that up if we have our results, Elena. And so most of the churches are at the place where they're regathering for worship. But still 25%, that's a pretty solid percentage. Man, in fact, 40%. So we still have a lot of churches that are really kind of in the digital world or slowly moving towards the regathering process. So this is a really helpful conversation. Great. Thanks, Tate. Matt, I'm going to ask you to introduce Mitch, and Mitch, we'll just go from there.
Well, I don't. If you don't know Mitch, Mitch is your official title. I'm going to take it as executive pastor.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and Mitch works at Centerpoint with Dane Ocker. Dane Ocker is a rock star. If you don't know Dane, have the pleasure of working there for a little while alongside Dane before Mitch, and so Centerpoint is just a wonderful place. And so, Mitch, would you share with us kind of what have you guys been up to? Where are you at in the reentry process? We've been using that language, not reopening. We just said the church is not closed its doors. So where's Centerpoint at? And what are you guys doing? How are you navigating this?
Yeah, so we opened the doors back up for live services on the 13th and 14th of June. So we've been only doing this for a couple weeks. There was a lot of planning that we put into looking at what we were going to do. And not only that, we wanted to kind of sit back and see what other churches were going to do as well, and learn from them and what they're doing. So we came back with 25% capacity. What that meant for us is that we could put a total of 100 people in our sanctuary, which our sanctuary generally holds about 450. So we said we could put about 400 in there. We even scaled that down a little bit for attenders, taking into account we were going to have tech team and band members in there. So we said we could have 85 people sitting there and watch the service. We don't have pews, we have chairs. So we took all the chairs out except for 85 of them. We hid our chairs because if those of you who have been involved in that know that people will get their own chairs down and put them where they want. We've experienced that. So we put our chairs away somewhere. And we said, these are the 85 that we have. Our ushers were super great about, for the last 2 weeks, they've been super great about seating families, because we have kind of clusters of chairs. We've done a cluster of 2 and a 4 and maybe a few 1s. And they'll take, if there's a family of 3, they'll sit them in a cluster of 4, but then take that one and move it somewhere else. So we're really trying to maximize how many people we can put in the sanctuary. So we really didn't know what to expect that first week back. So I would say that we were tremendously over prepared for everything. We set up viewing rooms all over our campus. And if anybody's been to our campus was kind of created for this kind of situation to be in that we have a lot of rooms that will hold small groups of people. So we set these rooms all over. Like I said, we could put 85 in the sanctuary, but we made it so that we could hold, with streaming to these other rooms, about 300 people on our campus per service. We got nowhere near that response for the last 2 weeks. So the first week we had 326 people come. Now, remind you, that's spread out between 6 services. So none of our services were super full. Last weekend, we had 315, so it went down a little bit from the first weekend. And so we just really didn't know what to expect. So we didn't use any of those viewing areas the first week. Last week, we scaled them down to only needing, having a couple just in case, and still didn't use them. So this week, we're scaling them down even a little bit more. To kind of just have one viewing room that's going to be an overflow in case we have more people come. So we didn't do bulletin. There's no bulletin. We tried to do what we're calling a touchless service. And so bulletin can all be found online. If people want that, they can go to our website or our app to find the bulletin. No handshakes, no hugs. We had everybody come in one door and then exit another door. So we didn't have people passing each other between services. We have about 15 minutes between our services, and so we didn't want them to be coming in and out the same door. We haven't done any sort of passing the giving plate or anything like that. So we got these giving boxes that we've put at the back at every door that people can drop their giving in. But we still encourage people to primarily use online, because we shut down our giving kiosks. We're not passing the plate around, but we do have those giving boxes so people can, and quite a few people have used that way of giving. We provided seat covers for everybody. So they're like these plastic covers that will go over seats if people feel comfortable. We bought 5,000 of them and we've used 2. So if anybody needs 4,998 seat covers, hit us up. We got you covered over here at Centerpoint. We'll bring them to you if we need to. But if you feel like your church would really respond to that, seriously, we do have some we would be happy to donate to somebody, because the people just aren't using them around here. I think like Tate mentioned, the people that are coming are the people that will be a little bit more comfortable with this. And so they're not using that. one thing I would be interested to hear from Tate, as someone that's been back through a communion weekend, is how they handled that. Our plan coming into communion in a couple weeks is we're going to use all the prepackaged communion cups where the juice and the wafer are all together. And so I don't know if there's any other ideas that people have been using, but we ordered a bunch of those weeks ago. And so we're going to use all those prepackaged ones. A lot like Tate mentioned, as far as the sanitizing the building goes, we have a team that's ready between services that goes out. They wipe down everything, the backs of the chairs, any sort of surface that could have been touched, or doors or anything like that. We don't close the doors during the services like we normally do, so people don't have to touch them to come in and out, but yet we're still sanitizing them. We closed down all the drinking fountains, no drinking fountains, just bring your own drinks if you want to. One of the things that I thought was kind of proactive in this is that we created in our sanctuary we were able to do this, but we created a 13-foot barrier from the front of the stage to the beginning of the congregation, because we're requiring masks for everybody that attends the service. That's kind of a non-option for us, unless you have a physical ailment that you cannot medically wear a mask. Then you can go into the balcony, is what we're saying. The balcony is only for that, and social distance and spread out back there. But so we created that barrier because we're making that for the congregants. However, the band and Dane preaching we're not wearing masks on stage. So we didn't want to have any sort of, I guess just to say it, when you sing and speak, sometimes you spit, and we didn't want anybody to be sitting in the splash zone, we'll say. So we created a large barrier. We taped a line across the sanctuary there, and we just asked that people not move their chairs in front of that line. We don't have any kids or youth meeting back yet. We haven't started yet, and we're trying to figure out. Part of that is that we're using originally we were using all of our kids and youth rooms as these viewing areas. And so now that we're talking about it a little bit more, but we're trying to figure out how do we safely do that. But one of the things we did do is we use a kids moment in the service. Our children's department records a children's moment for the kids, because we want them to come to church with their parents. And so as kids come in, they get a little bag that they can have some stuff to color with. Honestly, my favorite thing that was in the bag was a sucker, because when kids are sucking on suckers, they're not talking. And so for me, as my kids, I'm not saying that for everybody else's kids, but for my kids, I loved the sucker in the bag. But then we have a video that our children's department has created in order to kind of engage the kids in that as well. And so that's been a really good thing, because we've scaled our services down just tremendously through this whole thing. We used to have a 1-hour service. Now we're shooting for a 50 to 55 minute service. And so we've cut a song out of the worship in order to do that, which we found just kind of worked better on the digital anyways. And then Dane's been really working to just kind of get to the meat of what his sermon's going to be, which has been really cool. We require temp checks for all of our staff and volunteers as they show up that day. So they're required to check into a room where they'll have their temperature taken. If they are reading hot, we'll say you can sit for a second because it's hot outside. Sit for a second, see if you cool down, we'll take it again. If anybody's running a temperature, they're going to be asked to go home. If anybody's just feeling sick at all, they're going to be asked to not be a part of the service that day, just in general. So those are a few of the precautions that we've taken, and we find that so far they're working pretty good. Like I said, I think we kind of over prepared, which is good, because we don't want to be surprised for anything our first couple of weeks back. Like I said, we're going to scale back those viewing areas. We've closed down most of them. And the things in the sanctuary are going well. People are really responding. They don't like wearing masks, but we're just saying, but who does like wearing? I mean, look, it puts this crease in my beard. I hate wearing the mask just because the beard crease I get. But we're trying to be, Pastor Dane really preached it as, I don't wear a mask to protect me. I wear it because I love you and I care about you and I want to protect you. And it's a loving action that we do. we've had people that have just plain said, I'm not coming back till I don't have to wear a mask. And we say, great, we still have a digital online thing that you can check out. That would be a huge thing that I would stress, is not to, when you come back to services, not to neglect your digital online that you put so much work into, probably to get it going for the last 14 weeks. Because even though, we've had 300 and some come back, we've still had numbers around like the 1,500 range that are clicking in to watch a service. And so I say that to, as the person that was kind of in charge of that digital realm and kind of making everything happen, I really felt like when we were coming back to doing services, like we were launching a campus again, because now we've got our digital campus, and we've even said this, we're one church with 2 locations. We've got our brick and mortar campus, and we've got our digital online campus that people can still attend. And we don't want either one to feel like a second-rate campus. We want them to be a viable option for everybody to go to. So don't let your digital go to the wayside now that you're putting a lot more energy and time into the brick and mortar campus and putting services there. So a couple things that just kind of surprised me were how few people came back. I think that people are still concerned and people are still worried about this. I talked to like our numbers that we had 326 the first week for the whole weekend, and that was 6 services. And I really felt like I thought there was going to be more. We kind of took a poll that morning, like, how many people do you think are going to come? And I said like 800, and Dane said like 700, and I think it was our youth pastor said like 300, and I was like, oh man, 300, come on. Well, he was the closest, because I think people are still concerned. People are still worried about it. And though we're letting kids come into the service, there's not a lot of families that are coming. There's a few in every service, but there's not a ton. Another surprise I had was people's responses to the masks, and just being like, I'm not coming if I have to wear a mask, I'm not going to come. That really surprised me, but we were unwavering in that, other than the medical conditions, and saying, if you can physically not breathe, or you cannot wear it because of doctor's orders or medical condition. Some people just like, I don't want to. Well, I'm sorry, we want you to. And so we don't want to lose anybody over this, but that's kind of where we're at. Another thing that surprised me, Tate, you kind of talked about, I had an opposite experience than you did with volunteers coming back, in that I was surprised by how many staff didn't want to return yet. How many staff were saying, I don't feel safe yet. And we're trying to navigate as a staff, how do we, at what point do we say, well, you can't necessarily choose when you come back, and how do we keep staff going? But then there were so many volunteers that were saying, I'm eager, I want to come back, tell me where I can go. And so the volunteers were like, I want to be here. And we were a little bit like staff, kind of like, well, staff, you need to be here. And volunteers, we want you here. But we had volunteers that were just eager. And I've gotten more, I manage our volunteer application that we do online. I've gotten more volunteer applications in the last 2 weeks than I've gotten probably in the whole year so far. And just people that are like, I want to just get back involved in being in church. So those are the major things that we've been looking at and we've been going through. It's been an exciting time. Just to touch real quick on staffing, we brought our staff back into the office on the 15th. And so we have masks required for you as you're in your in the office as well. If you're in your own office, it's okay, but we do want people to be staying safe around the office as well.
Hey man, Mitch, that is great stuff. That is so helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I see, Josh, that you've joined us. I know that you've had some time constraints. Do we need to, would you like to go right now, or do we have a moment to ask Mitch a question? Can't hear you.
That's fine. Yeah, ask Mitch. That'd be
okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Matt, question for Mitch, or what comes to your mind as you hear him talk? Or Tate, if you have something too.
So I had 2 things. So the first was, and I think Doug actually asked this question, how did you come up with 13 feet from the stage to the first row? That's a great question. Was that arbitrary, or did you flip a coin?
Well, we all stood on stage and we saw how far we could all spit, and that's where it came out to. No,
That's what I was afraid it was.
we actually started from the back of the sanctuary setting up chairs, and it took us to that area to still have social distancing, and because we wanted to get the most possible. So back of the sanctuary forward to get 85 chairs in there, and then we still had 13-foot gap.
Okay, that's okay. The second thing was a conversation around communion. And I know that you guys are trying to figure that out. And I know Tate, I'd love to hear what you guys have done for us. Basically what we're doing is we're leaning into something that we do called Faith at Home, which is essentially is equipping families to have a moment together at home, a conversation around the message, an activity. And so when it comes to communion, we're actually sending those who came to the physical gathering, we're sending them home with those prepackaged communion supplies and saying, okay, we're equipping you to have this faith at home moment together and have communion together at home. So that's what we're doing, because we're requiring the mask to be worn at all times. So I love Tate. I'd love to hear how you guys are doing it, handling communion.
Yeah, we used prepackaged, and like everything else, you just want to be clear and simple how you're going to do that. Believe it or not, those packages are kind of tough to open. They're different. People aren't used to them, and man, we had a ton of people spill them when they're open them, and so we tried that, and it worked fine. It's again just being clear, and of course we tried to have our people online join us. We prepared them ahead of time to have something so they could join in the communion online as we were doing it together. And so that's how we did it, and we're going to continue to do that. Again, we had them pick it up themselves in the back. We didn't have bulletins either. That was a great point that you mentioned that, Mitch. Nothing that you would transfer, so they would just pick up the communion cups or the prepackaged communion in the back on their way in. And I would just add to what Mitch said that your biggest challenge, I think, is going to be the issue of mask. That seems to be the real dividing line for people. Whether you're going to require them to wear them or not wear them, and you're probably going to lose the other side on whatever you decide. So as you're evaluating that, that's a big choice for people that we're finding out.
So thank you. Let me stop here because I want to get Josh in before, and maybe we'll have a couple of questions at the end. Josh, so glad you're able to join us. Josh Husmann is back in Carmel, Indiana, so there's a 4-hour time difference. I know he had to juggle some things to be a part of this conversation, but we wanted Mercy Road's input because they've actually been doing this, I think, maybe Tate, the same length of time that you have or longer than anyone. And so, Josh, what have you been learning in the whole process of regathering? Good to have you online. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys, and apologize I missed the beginning. And, I just think in general, I always say this when I talk about this, there are a lot of opinions. I don't hold anything against anybody. This is one of the more complex issues, I think, as pastors we've ever had to lead through. So totally disagree with our approach. I've probably thought about disagreeing myself at times. But we, in general, we started back with pre-registrations in the middle of May and then grew that number each week, and then didn't have children's ministry, started pre-registrations for children in June, on June 7th. And then I think last week was the first week you didn't have to have registrations for anything. And like I heard Mitch share a little bit, if I could just tailor expectations for people of what the experience is going to be when they come back, that, it's going to be a different way of doing church for a while for us. And we don't know when that's going to be gone. And, we had, of our locations that have gone back, one was at about 33% of their previous attendance, one was at about 40 to 50%, and one was about 25 to 30%. And, so the online ministry is still really important. That said, it's been great being back in person again. We've done a lot of what was shared there as far as like cleaning in between services and taking necessary precautions. And we're even looking to for a couple $1,000, the air ducts, there's some things that could purify the air through the air ducts even. So we've looked into those sorts of things. in the end, we did not require masks. We encouraged them. We required staff to wear them. We required children's volunteers to wear them. We do temperature checks for children, and we keep the social distance sizes down. And we really thought our hardest thing was going to be social distance for kids. But so far, it's only been a couple of weeks. It hasn't been as difficult just because people are scared to bring their kids to things. I think that's one of the biggest things that is keeping the numbers down just in general is the fear for the kids. And I don't know what it's like in California, so it's a different context here in Indiana. I guess that's a little more surprising here because there is a little bit more like, you know, we protect our freedoms to do what we think we should be able to do. And so that's why, like with the mask, the medical freedom thing was a pretty big thing here. And so, but in the end, we have seen that the majority of people coming back are just really happy to be there, really happy to be able to participate and worship in a community again. But I also have been prepping our team because I feel like part of the low numbers, there's a million reasons it could be, but I definitely think, I saw the Barna statistics like a month ago that, you know, a portion of people are going to attend on a line, a portion of people may come back, but a portion of people just are doing nothing. And, you know, I think about like the families that I've met over the years who, you know, had a bad experience at church and didn't want to get away from church, but they just started playing golf on Sundays. And then they really liked playing golf on Sundays. And then the next thing you knew, 5 years later, they'd only play golf on Sundays. And I just wonder how much of that could be happening in our churches if we're not careful of making sure that we're still engaging people. And that was one of the reasons we decided to come back and begin to try and gather together of how can we reach people for, you know, Christ is our goal. So I didn't want them to just be going out and doing other social things, which the one thing that surprised me here in Indiana, when everything else started opening up, you know, everyone was going out. I mean, baseball's back here now, Little League baseball's happening, and you will see families that are definitely more interested in taking their kids to baseball than they would to a church service. So, you know, just kind of put in mind some of those same struggles we probably had before COVID are accentuated now because we gave everybody a great excuse. And so all that to say, I agree with what Mitch said. Don't undervalue when you come back. It's a great thing. You can reach people. People will love it. It's an opportunity to worship together in the building. But keep in mind, like, that when you're doing live services in the building, it can affect your online campus. So to continue to engage online and have that priority, we've had to kind of reinvigorate that in the last couple of weeks for us. I think that was one mistake we unintentionally made. And then you throw in the things that have been happening in our culture the last month. And we have just seen kind of a boiling over for people just in general. And so we're really trying hard just to create a loving atmosphere when people come on the weekends. And I think trying to do a better job too of just balancing everything with people. I don't know that we always did that. So that's a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of specific things that I think come up. The communion stuff, we've done the prepackaged communion. I really think going back to kids ministry was way easier than we thought it was going to be, just because the numbers aren't going to be there. And the interesting thing is that still has not affected our finances. So, you know, people are still engaging online, are still contributing financially, but I think there's still some who just it gave them an out for church altogether, and they still give financially just out of guilt. And you know what I mean? Like, so we're trying to work on like, man, this could go on for a while. So like, how do we really continue to reach people for Christ and help those families? And I don't think just having live services and having an online campus is even going to solve that. So those are the things that we're kind of looking into.
Tate and Mitch, while I'm asking you, you know, you've talked about the things that you've done to bring the people back and to safely regather and to give them the confidence. My guess is that you face challenges with the staff, because staffs are not cookie cutter. They think differently. Some are thinking one way, some the other way. I'm not asking you to, you know, pull out the dirty underwear, but what kinds of challenges did you face with staff and how did you work through that? Tate, Mitch, same thing.
Yeah, for us, I totally agree with what Josh said there. We've experienced the same thing, this complacency or convenience, all those same things we had before really become a bigger challenge. People just start doing different things over these last 3 months. And so I'm really, that's what we've experienced as well. In terms of staffing, we've been fortunate. You know, we don't have the size of staff probably as some of the other guys here, but our handful of staff has been on board with what we're doing from the very beginning, and we've all been on the same page. We just felt, even our leadership team, our elders, you know, our board, we just felt it was essential that we got back together as soon as possible, as soon as we felt it was safe and we could implement ways to do that. And as we did that, we found people were totally excited to be together. Those that are fearful are probably not going to come. And I agree with what Josh said, be healthy on your online stuff. We've had half and half in terms of those coming and those online. And so everything we do in person, we try to do online. What we did for Fathers on Father's Day last week, we did online with the people that were watching online. And so, but our staff's been together. We just see it a necessity to get our program started up again, because half of the people are really hungry for that, and the other half are going to stay home because they're still waiting it out a little bit. And I think the longer you wait, the more complacent people become.
We've just tried to really listen to our staff and see where their concerns are. Part of the things that we put into place, some of the things that we put into place were because staff has said, I would feel more comfortable if this was in place. They pushed back on us a little bit. Like, we originally were saying, well, yeah, if people want to wear masks, that's great. If they don't want to wear a mask, they can go over into this other area. And we just had some staff kind of push back on us and say, well, I mean, nobody wants to, so we might as well just say that we're not going to have masks. And if we're not going to have masks, I don't feel comfortable being here because of my family. And so we said, okay, well, we hear you. We love you. We'll go back and say, no, we need people to wear masks for right now. And ultimately, that's what the government's asking us to do anyways. So back when we were thinking the other way, what they were saying, you know, masks weren't required anymore, but we were still going to require them.
Josh, any thoughts on your staff?
Yeah, I mean, there was some things we had to walk through for sure. You know, coming back to the building, we did have one staff member concerned about that, but that was rightly so. He was going through cancer treatment. So we've just told him, look, I mean, if you need 6 months, whatever you need to work remotely, let's work this out. I did have to have a couple of conversations with people and I don't know, I hope this isn't just my personality, but I you know, there was a couple of people, there was no real legitimate reason. They just didn't really want to, and they felt, well, there was a legitimate reason they felt uncomfortable, but I told them, you know, look, it's totally fine. Would love, you know, I want to work with you and all of that, but we're not going to pay you to not do something. So like, we're not going to continue to pay you if you don't want to do it. We need somebody that's going to do this job. And that was really hard conversation to have, you know, but they responded. And then part of that was some people just breaking out of the fear. They had developed so much fear over the months of being in a home. Now I think you can see in parts of the country that fear has waned. So we're also working hard on like not letting, you know, like a healthy amount of concern being, like I saw a question there just about what happens if somebody gets it or there's an outbreak because they came to the building. I mean, that's always something that is in the back of my head. So we take that seriously, and you know, we don't want people to live in fear, but we also got to be smart about the way that we're doing things. It's a hard balance.
I'm going to ask Matt one more question, but let me just respond to one of the questions that was asked, Josh. You just alluded to it. Is there a game plan of communication if one of the churches experiences, if someone in the church on the staff comes down with COVID? And I think we're going to take a whole webinar just to talk about that, because it has implications that go way beyond COVID. It's what do you do? What needs to be communicated to who? When do you communicate it? What do you say to the press? All those kinds of things. guess that one of our churches will probably be impacted by it before this thing's all over. If not, you know, there are all kinds of emergencies that come up, and that will be a great conversation to have. So we'll push that off a little bit, but Matt, what do you want to ask any of them as we kind of wrap this up?
Oh gosh. Here's a great question. So you created your plan, you relaunched. What's the one thing you didn't anticipate happened? What was the blind spot? Or did you just, every base was covered? You hit a home run right out the gate.
Yeah, I'll jump in just because I don't know if we really had one of those. I think we felt a little bit like Mitch said, that we really thought through it. We took a number of weeks. This wasn't something we did lightly. Even the question that Doug was mentioning about if somebody got it, we've thought through that. I think the key thing is just think through ahead of time all of those possibilities, and they're real. But in terms of people coming back, I think people are eager to be together and excited to be together, and those that are fearful are probably going to take a little bit longer. So I don't think we were surprised by anything that way.
Yeah, I think the one thing for me would be just how afraid people still are. That they are still there. There's some people that still have not left the house really. Being somebody that stayed kind of working through this, I came and sat in an empty sanctuary by myself almost every day through this. I don't think I have a clear understanding of how afraid people can be. And I think there's some definite need to be afraid for some people who have older family members who are older themselves or immunocompromised themselves. But that kind of really took me by surprise, is just how many people are still really, really, really concerned about this.
Okay. Well, listen, next week, Mark Berger is going to have a conversation with Tom Mercer and Kenneth Curry and Neil Benson, and they're going to be talking about what stays, what goes, what changes. So just kind of looking at the whole big thing. And then we're going to spend a couple of weeks digging a little bit more into race and reconciliation. And so that is kind of we don't want to let that one drop. We want to come back to that and just continue to learn what we need to learn and respond rightly to all of this. But, we don't always pray on the webinars, but I feel a want to pray before we sign off today. And I think just the enormous leadership challenge that's been presented to our pastors in all of this, the complications of what's going on in our culture, I think it's just important that we take a moment and ask God for his leading and for his wisdom. So Matt, I'm going to ask you if you would do that, and if you would pray just for churches that are regathering, for the leadership that's needed, for all the stuff that's going on in our culture. And then we'll say amen means goodbye.
Awesome. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you just for the collective wisdom here that we can lean into not only you, but each other. And learn. And so, Lord, I pray for this kind of continued posture of learning and humility. And God, I pray that you protect our churches. It's your church, but protect our local bodies. Lord, help us to keep our people engaged. And Lord, protect the mission. And so we pray all this, Lord, in your son, Jesus' name, amen.